right, so let's talk about the other side of the equation. Let's talk about maybe, and I don't want to say more delicate because neither of these is more delicate than the other, but this is a hard one. What if you're the child? What if you are someone who is in the messy middle, or you are at a stage where life is hard and you are struggling right now, and you do happen to know that your parents are in a financial situation where they are on sound financial footing. And you've come to this realization, okay, I know that life will be okay one day because mom and dad have done great, but man, it's gonna, if they're gonna live a ripe, long life, and I'm gonna inherit all this money 30 years from now. Man, I don't know if it would really help me. It would be life-changing. It'd be trajectory-altering if maybe I had some of that help now as opposed to later. How do you do that well? Because that one can be real dicey.
Be careful.
Yep.
This is the first thing. We'll get into some actual tips here, but I do want to tell you to be careful because I think it's a part of the human condition. We're all somewhat selfish.
Oh, yeah.
So you might be in a situation to where you think that, hey, this is a no-brainer for mom and dad to help me. I'll just bring up my concerns, my wishes, and they should help me. Just make sure that you just be careful because this money is it's a taboo subject and it's hard. And, once it comes out of your mouth, you don't get to get it back. That's right. So that's why this is definitely a measure twice, cut once before you even go down this path. And I would challenge you to really make sure your heart, make sure your mindset and your perspective on this situation is actually going to be heard the way you think it's going to be heard, because this could be very challenging.
So let's talk about some what to do's and what not to do's. Here's the first what to do. Clearly communicate that there is a struggle present. Explain to your parents, hey, here's what's going on. Man, I really, the school system we're in is not wonderful, and there's a great school, but we just can't quite get the tuition together, but we really want that to be the education there. Clearly communicate that there is a need, and that need is actually a need and not a want, and that there's a goal behind why you're trying to achieve that thing. If you can clearly paint the picture for them, it will seem less like it's this emotional, visceral thing where you're just trying to get into their back pocket. And I think if they actually see it's something that you need and not something that you want, the parents are going to clue into that. They're going to recognize that it is a legitimate concern.
Well, and the second thing we put was provide a solution. Now, what we mean by that, this is not meaning your parents are the solution with their money.
Right, this check. There's a solution.
It means that you, as part of this, because think about any good presentation, if you're going to have a hat in hand moment to where you're the adult child coming to your parents humbly asking for their help, you don't want to seem like you're asking just for what it potentially is, a straight up handout.
Money, yeah.
You need to show them that this is a win-win scenario, meaning that you are part of the solution. And I'll give you an example in this. In the book, Millionaire Mission, I shared that as soon as I got into my adult life, I think a lot of people fall into this, is that all my adult decisions added up much more than I could have ever realized. When you start paying your first apartment, even with roommates, you start paying your first apartment, you get your first car payment to get you to your job that's actually going to be your wealth building engine. And then you got your lifestyle choices that you have to figure out, how often am I going out to eat with my friends? How often am I taking my girlfriend out to eat? How often, all these things, groceries and how we're splitting up. Adult life kicked my butt, and I ran up some credit card debt, and I'm not proud that this happened, to the point that I just couldn't make the math work, and I had to call my father, and I said, "Look, I can't. I'm $300 short," which it was very humbling, but I shared with him that I would never make this mistake again. I was already trimming certain things. I was going to start, taking my lunch to work, and I shared the solution. And then I'll tell you, internally, it tore me up inside to know what a disappointment I was to my parents to have this perceived success. I'd graduated, got my first big job, and then here I was coming right back to them asking for money because I couldn't do it on my own. I made sure internally that I said, look, you're never, ever, ever going to put yourself in this situation again. And I created a solution for myself. So there's nothing wrong. I did the right thing instead of paying the high interest credit card debt. but you got to make sure that you're providing a solution so that this doesn't look like you're just asking for a handout and you're going to just keep repeating this cycle over and over in an unhealthy way.
The other thing you have to do is mentally prepare yourself. When you go and ask someone a yes or no question, you need to be prepared that if the answer is not what you were anticipating, you need to make sure, are my parents actually willing to do this? You can lay out your struggle and you can lay out the solution. You can lay all this out, but at the end of the day, it's their money and they get to choose if they help or not. And if their answer is no, you need to be okay with that. You need to recognize that it's their choice to make. You cannot storm in there and begin demanding, Mom and Dad, I need this help. You got to do this. You got to do this. That's going to create friction in the relationship that you do not want. And they may say, hey, we'd love to help, but we can't. You have to respect that. And you have to be comfortable with their no being a no, or else it's going to lead to a very negative and bad place.
And let me save some relationships here. You don't know their full picture either.
That's right.
Is because I think about, and this is a childhood story, but I remember I wanted a go-kart so bad when I was a kid. And I knew my dad made $40,000 a year. And I had done the math and I was like, why is my dad not buying me a go-kart?
What a
He
jerk,
can afford
right?
20 or 30 go-karts,
Yep.
you know, but what I was doing, what I call go-kart math, rightly named, because what I wasn't realizing was, hey, as an adult, you have mortgages, you got kids' education,
Yep.
you've got, you know, all the after school things, you've got all the groceries, you've got all the expenses that nobody tells you as a kid that you have. You know, if your parents tell you no, I want you, because for the sake of the relationship, just know there must be more going on than you realize, because maybe if you have siblings, there's already stuff going on there, or maybe they're not in as good a financial situation as you might have been led to believe. You've seen that, Bo, in your own life,
all the time,
where, you know, you thought some things were going to be funded a certain way, and then you find out, hey, parents just didn't have the money.
That's right.
So don't make false assumptions, and be careful, because you don't want to ruin the more powerful overall relationship.
So that's what to do. Let's talk about what not to do. These are big. Make sure you don't create this as a transactional thing. Hey, Mom and Dad, I need this, so you should give me this. And it's a transaction. This, if they choose to help you, and if this is something that's a part of your financial plan, it needs to be driven by the relationship and not the transaction. If you let the transaction drive it and it just feels transactional, nobody wins in that scenario. It's not good for you. It's not good for your parents. It's not what the original tweet of this show was getting at. That is a very, very different thing. So be careful not to let it turn into purely transactional.
Yeah, and I hope for my audience that maybe is on the side of this where you are the adult, you've done well, you've saved well, you've planned well, and you know you're ahead of the curve. I hope you will kind of look at your life and say, hey, how can I use this as a blessing now? Because what is great, and I love this was from the original tweet, is that if you can make memories with your children now, if you can help them out with maybe some of those educational goals or some of those other struggles that they're having at this moment, versus just waiting for 20, 25 years in the future where they're old, you're old, and those assets never got to actually connect and let you actually see the fruit of all your hard work, all your discipline, and all your labor. Let's figure out how we do this in a healthy way. And that's what a good financial planner can do. I love that it was a financial planner that shared this tweet. I love that we're fee-only financial planners, that we get to share this content with you guys, because this is the hard stuff that I do think makes financial planners help. We, in a lot of ways, are the moderators between some of these hard life decisions on how do you navigate the emotional stuff, the relationship stuff, but also get the math and all the analytics stuff that a lot of people just take for granted. How do you get the perfect balance on that? A lot of times it means taking the relationship to the next level.